When the envelope first arrived, aides at Kensington Palace were puzzled. There was no royal seal, no official stamp from California, and no recognizable postmark from any diplomatic courier. Just a simple envelope with Will's penned in familiar, slightly hurried handwriting. It was placed directly on Prince William's desk and sat unopened for hours. He'd long trained himself to expect barbs, not bridges, from his younger brother. But something about the simplicity, the lack of spectacle, the rawness of it, unsettled him. When he finally opened it late that evening, alone in his study, the future King of England was unprepared for what he read. It wasn't a letter from the Duke of Sussex. It was from Hazza, the boy who once shared a room with him at Balmoral. The man who now, on paper, was simply saying, "I was wrong." Inside, the letter unfolded like a confession. Harry wrote candidly of his anger, of how he'd mistaken independence for vengeance, and of how fame had replaced family in ways he never anticipated. "I wanted to be heard," he wrote. "But I didn't need to make you the villain to find my voice." For Prince William, stoic, guarded, duty-bound, it was the first crack in a wall he'd spent 4 years building. The brother he'd once wrestled on palace lawns and stood shoulder to shoulder with at their mother's funeral was suddenly human again. What led to this letter wasn't a press scandal or a studio cancellation, though there were plenty. It was a desert. Harry had traveled to Botswana alone in early July under the guise of environmental work. In reality, he was escaping. Meghan had stayed behind in Montecito, reportedly exhausted by the failed Hollywood pivot and growing Archwell drama. Alone with nothing but a journal, a sat phone, and a rucksack, Harry camped on the edge of the Okavango Delta for 3 days, no security detail, no satellite crew, no podcasts to record. Locals said he looked gaunt, restless. It was there, under the stars that had once offered him clarity after his mother's death, that he began to unravel emotionally. Sources say he was seen pacing alone at night, muttering to himself, sometimes breaking down in tears. He kept asking if he went too far, one guide said. He wasn't talking about Hollywood. He was talking about his brother. About the Queen. About how it all turned into a fight he didn't understand anymore. By the time he boarded his flight back to the US, the journal was full. The first letter to William was drafted at 30,000 feet over the Atlantic. When William received the first of what would become 3 letters over a span of 2 weeks, he told no one, not even Catherine. For a man used to protocol and tight-knit control, the emotional vulnerability was disarming. William reportedly reread the letter 6 times, often pausing, shaking his head, sometimes placing it face down on the table as if it radiated guilt. Royal insiders say the heir to the throne was devastated, not because the apology came, but because it took this long. Still, forgiveness in royalty is never instant. The wounds were too deep. Harry's memoir Spare, with its accusations of bullying, of physical altercations, of being cast aside like a spare part. The Oprah interview, where Meghan implied the royal family tolerated racism. The Netflix series. The podcast Eggs. The silence after Prince Philip's death. The distance at the Queen's funeral. Yet the letters were strangely void of defensiveness. "I can't excuse myself anymore," one passage reportedly read. "But if there's still a sliver of the boy you grew up with left in me, I want him to come home." Contrary to what the public expected, Meghan Markle did not oppose Harry's outreach. According to a source close to the Sussex household, Meghan was stunned, but not angry. In fact, she allegedly gave him the space to write, telling friends, "If this heals something in him, I won't stand in the way." Still, her absence from the narrative is glaring. Harry's letters to William did not mention her by name. A calculated omission or a recognition of how her presence had complicated things. Time will tell. In California, Meghan focused on other projects. Some say she was quietly negotiating a solo deal. Others suggest she needed distance from Harry's emotional spiral. "She's tired of being the scapegoat," one former aide explained. But she also knows that if Harry doesn't fix things with his brother, he may never heal. Insiders say Meghan sees William as a symbol, not a person, and Harry is trying to remember the man underneath the crown. Harry's letters included personal memories, not politics. He referenced their late mother, Princess Diana, and the codes they created as children to escape royal stiffness. He recalled a night when they snuck out during a Balmoral holiday to throw pebbles into a frozen lake, both laughing so hard they cried. Somewhere between that lake and Montecito, I lost who I was, he wrote. The letters seemed less about rejoining the family and more about rediscovering himself through the brother he had betrayed. William, deeply private, reportedly shared the letters with his father King Charles only after he finished reading all three. The king, now a monarch but forever a father, was emotional, sources say. Charles always wanted reconciliation, but never knew how to broker it, a courtier said. He feared forcing it would break them more. Camilla reportedly advised her husband not to intervene. Let the boys figure it out, she said, according to insiders. They're not children anymore. What followed the final letter was not a grand reconciliation, but a cautious exchange of text messages. William responded simply at first, "Got your letters. Need time." Days later, "Let's speak soon." By the end of the second week, a brief video call was arranged. No assistants. No palace staff. Just two brothers with a screen between them, staring at the familiar lines in each other's faces. Sources who saw Harry afterwards say he cried during the call. It wasn't long, and it wasn't perfect, one insider shared. But they laughed. That's what mattered. There are now discussions of a private meeting, no media, no press, no leaks. Harry is reportedly planning to return to the UK in September, and William has agreed to meet him in Norfolk. Not at Kensington Palace, not at Clarence House, but at a private cottage on the Sandringham estate. Neutral ground, a source explained, where the ghosts of the crown don't loom as large. Inside Buckingham Palace, the mood has shifted. Staffers who once rolled their eyes at the California circus are now speculating about a potential turning point. Charles, ever the sentimental monarch, is reportedly preparing to invite Harry to spend Christmas at Sandringham for the first time in years, if things go well in September. But don't expect an official photo shoot or balcony reunion just yet. The institution is still wary, says a senior palace official. One wrong quote from Harry and the entire house of cards could collapse again. However, the tone is different. This isn't about strategy anymore. This is about sorrow. Years lost. Time wasted. A brotherhood frayed by fame, ego, and outside voices, now finding its way back to center. Harry isn't coming to reclaim a title, one insider said. He's coming to reclaim a brother. Across the pond, Harry's reconciliation attempts have stirred intrigue in the Hollywood circles that once embraced him. Executives who once championed the Sussex brand are watching cautiously. If Harry goes full royal again, where does that leave the brand? Asked one Netflix insider. The Sussexes built a narrative around leaving the monarchy. Can they pivot to healing it? For Meghan, the dilemma is even sharper. Will she follow Harry down this path of reparation or chart her own? PR experts warn that Harry's apology tour may alienate their fan base. But others argue it's his most authentic move yet. People are tired of curated trauma, said one industry analyst. This letter, if real, is messy, emotional, vulnerable. That's rare. That's powerful. For the public, this unfolding reconciliation is a human story first, a royal saga second. For decades, William and Harry were symbols of a modern monarchy, one dutiful, one daring. Their split mirrored global divisions, tradition versus rebellion, duty versus identity. But perhaps now, after years of tabloid headlines and streaming sagas, they're becoming something simpler. Two sons, shaped by grief, trying to heal what their mother's absence tore apart. Royal watchers remain cautious. The road back is long, but for the first time in years, it's visible. A simple letter cracked open the door. Whether either brother walks through fully, only time will tell. But for now, the silence has been broken. And in that silence, there is finally a flicker of hope. As of now, no official statement has been made. No palace photographer has captured the supposed phone call.